Hello, hello, mis cielitos, and welcome back. Coco is here, and I am continuing Raging Loop. Last session, we got quite a hefty bit of information, most important of all being that Chiemi has also been looping, which that didn't come as too much of a surprise since we had several moments where it seemed like she was recalling things. And at first, I sort of... Honestly, I think maybe Rikako might be experiencing something similar, since they're both characters that have referenced things that have happened in other loops. The one I remember most of all with Rikako was when she mentioned, during the second one, how she knew from the moment she saw him through the leaves that he was going to be someone important or something to that effect, and that hadn't happened in that loop. So not sure if maybe she's also looping, or if that's just some other power that she has being part of the spider family, but I suppose we shall see. Thus, he started talking. He'd participated in 2 feasts in the past, and this was his 3rd. But as far as he knew, there was another feast before that. It happened about 60 years ago, shortly after he was born. The mist came, and many died. It coincided with World War II. Youths from both Kami Fujiyoshi and Yasumitsu were drafted to the battlefield, so most of the ones who died in the feast were the elderly, women, and children. After that, Yasumitsu, which once had dozens of people, quickly deteriorated. Deaths weren't the only cause. Some just fled. I don't know much about that time, but the elders said that it wasn't supposed to happen. What do you mean? No idea. They just said that the wolf should have never actually appeared. His explanation was so full of holes that I didn't really understand. However, it seemed like, until the event during the war, the Feast of the Yomi Purge wasn't considered a paranormal event. Most couldn't believe that the Okami had actually appeared. It shocked everyone. They began to think they'd angered the mountain. Some of the elderly believed that the Fujiyoshi blood spilled in the war had awakened the wolves. It happened just 60 years ago, but it greatly spread the darkness of the local superstition. Apparently, something that happened in Yasumiso at that time helped too. Kanzo-san just said that people were killed, and I couldn't tell whether Kanzo-san didn't know the details, or if he found it so detestable he didn't want to say it. Whatever the case, the main topic of conversation happened a while after that. It was the other 2 feasts, the one he participated in. He said that there were no myths for a whole 40 years after the feast in the war. The war ended during this time, and though some tried to fix it, Yasumitsu was in an awful state. People died. The workforce was lost. Poverty became worse. Some still living went to work away from home, causing the place to deteriorate even further. However, Hanzo-san felt that the main cause of this awful state was the darkness of superstition clouding the locals' hearts. Hanzo-san could remember how, when he was young, everyone just worked the fields with cloth over their faces, constantly afraid of something. Those cloths were an item used in the mountain Shinai festival. Their purpose was to prevent eye contact with Yomibito. Hello, Ziri. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for coming. though Kanzo-san himself used it to keep the sun out of his eyes and to prevent his game from sensing his vision. But at the core, it was an unreasonable tool born of superstition. Anyway, as the village became more and more unreasonable, the mist came. It happened about 15 years ago. At that time, Tae-san and Chiemi, who was still in her first year of elementary school, were participating in an event in Kamifujiyoshi, so they ended up avoiding the incident. Yeah, you didn't miss too much. He's been explaining the conversation he's been having with Kanzo-san, in which he's relating the 2 feasts that he was in. But he also mentioned that there was a third before. The very first one came as a surprise to the people, since back then they didn't actually believe in the Okami. And that happened around World War II, so most of the people who ended up dying then were women and children, since most of the men had been drafted. At that time, Tae-san and Chiemi, who was still in her first year of elementary school, were participating in an event in Kamifujiyoshi, so they ended up avoiding the incident. Hello, PCU. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for coming. I'm doing well. Hope you are too. Thank you for asking. The 2 village heads who were in Yasumisu right now weren't here to begin with, while Takumi-san was already an adult working away from home. Haru-chan was born just a year before, and since her parents were on vacation, she also avoided the tragedy. They were on a trip away from Yasumisu, with a small child. My son's wife was a teacher from a nearby town, who went back to her parents. I see. I'm impressed you decided to marry someone from out of Yasumisu. He was pretty much an outsider, huh? Some complained about it, especially Taiba. You weren't against it? The opposite. I'd rest easy knowing they could leave Yasumisu at this time of year. It was the only time they'd ever escape, though. Anyway, the only ones who'd experienced that feast and were still alive were Kanzo-san and the old wolf guy. It was a feast like this one. No one wanted to hang anyone the first day, then the wolves killed someone. You had a fake for every guardian receiver. No one trusted anyone, and then voted. Go against the rules and get the corruption. Some tried. They died in the mountains or because they didn't shelter. This feast killed the Higuchi heir, Oribes, Yasun Yoshi's dad. I'd heard of that. He was killed by the wolves on the first day. He was either wise enough for the wolves to see him as a threat, or they just hated him. Both were likely, but I didn't care about that now. Why would a village head come to Yasumisu? He came here by himself to make a proper watering hole. The Iguchi family fought over who'd get this dirty job. And it coincided with the feast. Was it planned? Many get sent here at this time of year. You're one too. Ooh. I see. But was it unusual to invite outsiders at this time of year? That's true. It's also the first time a journal came to Yasumisu. The fact that outsiders were invited at all was way more suspicious than the timing of it. Anyway, about 10 people died in the feast, and Yasumisu lost a third of its population. It was awful. Kanzo was just a human without any guardian. Half of the participants were old people who had either experienced the last feast or were in the war. Naturally, they could make awfully cruel decisions, and some tried to go against the rules, leading to severe punishments at the hands of the corruption. I couldn't do anything. I just hid from the scary stuff and didn't say a thing. The eldest there told me to watch and learn, because I'd be the one running Yasumisu if they died. He got brutalized by the wolves soon after. Who were the wolves? We only found out one of the three. But the last one we hanged was a girl about as old as Toru, my son. Remembering it still gives me chills. As she got the noose on her and fell, that well-behaved girl cursed us with the face of a demon. I knew that feeling well due to all my looping, but I couldn't really say it. Hello, Xerox. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for coming. After that, we finished up the feast. The old fart's been like that. The old fart's been like that then, too. The old wolf guy. When they came back, I told Taiba, my son, and everyone else that there'd been an accident. But there was nothing to worry about. Little Chi was scared and got all quiet for a while. She even asked me to go with her to the bathroom at night. Takumi came back right after, and Higuchi's wife was sent here with Yasu. She had Yoshi in her. That was the first feast. If I may ask, did something happen in Yasumisu before the feast began? What do you mean? Anything big enough for the village heads to take notice. A few years before that, there'd been an illness here. It was hell. Dozens died, and I was on the verge too. What illness was it? I don't know. Gave everyone bad diarrhea, though. Was that relevant? What about the next feast? 8 years ago, after a bad rain, the mist came again. It started after the landslide and the Nosato construction site buried some people. I already knew some things about that feast. During it, the children, Tae-san and Kaori-san, were in Kami Fujiyoshi, and it killed Haru-chan's parents. Gen-san, one of the survivors, mentioned something about the badger, and Haru-chan somehow survived the mist. Hanzo-san added more information to that. Takumi-san had been working away from home again, and Kanzo-san was the crow. He was absolutely certain that his son, Horomaki Shimashi, was a wolf. Oh, damn. And here he has his granddaughter being a wolf. My son. My son said he was a crow. Omiko, his wife, cried as my son and I shouted at each other, saying that the other's a wolf. In the end, there was a vote. He's the one who ended up hanging. Kept saying it until the end. He said he was a real crow and that I was a wolf. There wasn't a bit of lies in his eyes. If I wasn't the crow, I would have believed him. Back then, only the elders voted for him, and it was really close. I almost got hanged. And someone got brutalized that night. And Tomiko, thinking that I was a wolf, tried to kill me at night and got the corruption because she didn't shelter. The next morning, the mist cleared. Oh. What? It cleared, though you didn't do anything after the brutalization? Haru-chan's parents' final moments sparked some emotions for me, but I had to comment on that. Was it really a brutalization? Are you sure the wolves didn't mess up and suffer the corruption? No, it was a clean axe kill. How many wolves did you kill until then? Out of the 3 wolves, only my son. I was a crow, so I knew. The mist cleared with 2 wolves still alive? That was supposed to be impossible. The feast rules didn't allow that. Wolves could only die during the day, and since one of them killed someone during the night, the wolves had to be alive. Yet the mist cleared despite that. That was supposed to be impossible. Or maybe it was unnatural to assume that the mist, a natural phenomenon, was directly linked with the feast, a man-made one. If the mist was actually somehow controlled by humans, then maybe it wasn't unlikely for it to clear due to some mistake. It would make sense if that happened this time. It would also explain the Gensan thing. If he'd been a wolf and accidentally survived, it would solve the contradiction of Kanzo-san, a human, still being alive, while Wolf was able to leave that crucial bit of info. If there was a way to control the mist, it probably wasn't linked to the control of the loop. Still, maybe it'd be useful. I'd keep this in mind. What about Haru-chan? I only know what I heard. She might have entered Yasumisu the evening my son was hanged, but no one saw her. Huh? The mist cleared after that, right? The mist cleared after that, right? Hmm? Had the mist cleared because of God? So the mist ended there. And I called Takumi to help clean up. Then Haru-chan became weird. I told her it was an accident. That her parents got lost in the mist and fell off the cliff. I couldn't say it. I couldn't tell her that her dad was a wolf or that her mom got torn apart, right? Hanzo-san was unusually talkative. I wonder if he's... I get the feeling he's never opened up to anyone about this. Probably felt like he always had to put on a strong face to lead the village. If he's held on to this for so many years, it's no wonder. The strange wolf before him made the rough, silent old man reveal things he'd wanted to take to his grave. You were right to do so. Still, the girl lost her parents, so she got weird. Wolf possession, right? That's one thing. She'd also been a good, cheerful girl, and it made her all edgy and selfish. She started wearing those clothes and still carried around that bottle she'd had with her at the time. I'm not sure about that. I don't know about the possession, but I feel like the changes in her behavior and taste are just in your imagination. Maybe it's only happening because you built a wall between you and her, and she just did the same. Don't act like you know. I do. We're both wolves. I saw glimpses of her true personality. You'd be surprised how honest she is. I'd almost call it greedy. She's a good, honest girl who takes in whatever she hears and matures like the teen she is. I'd call her talented just for that. I can honestly call her a good girl. A good person if it weren't for the situation. And if it weren't for the situation, I'd ask to be in a relationship with her. She's that charming. Then there's you. You were afraid that she might find out the truth, so you distance yourself from her and refuse to give her anything. Right, Kanzo-san? He didn't get mad at me. He just cast his eyes down. This wasn't the energetic, strong hunter I knew, but an old man caught in the throes of regret. What a shame. It was so sad that this would become nothing but a dream. This exchange that could perhaps remove the wall between the old man and his granddaughter would be gone. Oh well. I'd have to solve it all anyway. I'd try to fix their family relations too. It wasn't necessary for Haru-chan and I to be wolves for my words to resonate with him. Out of the 3 wolves, only my son. I was the crow, so I knew. She started wearing those clothes, and still carried around that bottle she had with her at the time. I also solved a few more mysteries. This was a good time to end it. Now, Kanzo-san, you need to go back. Everyone's worried. Give me your shoulder. I'll take you. What are you saying? Your only choices are killing the wolves or betraying the humans and killing them. That's why you can only kill me, or leave me here and kill everyone else. Right? Huh? I know full well that Haru-chan is important to you, but so are the others, right? If you kill Kaori-san, Haru-chan and I, you will win this with minimal casualties, by vote or by bullet. I'm sure you can do that. The Oribe brothers, Takumi-san, the elders, and the village heads are blameless here. That's why you have to decide right now. Don't act like you care about whether the feast happens today. Well, I know that you'll suffer the corruption if you don't get the others to agree. But I'm sure that you'll choose to massacre either the humans or the wolves, even if it means getting the corruption. Dying for Haru-chan is an option, and so is killing Haru-chan. But surviving yourself, and I know you won't pick either option. I don't get it. What are you after? Would the sheep get mad at me if I said I just wanted to die quickly and naturally and move on to the next time? That was the absolute truth. But the thing I really wanted to say now was, Kanzo Makishima-san, I need you to be a good person. Please do what you believe is right. With that done, I closed my eyes. After a long, long period of hesitation, I heard a metallic sound come from his rifle. His breathing was steady. He'd made his decision. It'd be bad for me if I just died here and there was no loop. However, I did find it sad that this man's resolve would become nothing but a dream. P19, Hunter's Confession. By revealing my true self to Kanzo-san, I managed to have a heart-to-heart with him. As a survivor of 2 previous feasts, the most important thing he told me was, though the feast wasn't over, the mist cleared. This implies 2 things. First, the clearing of the mist can't always be perfectly controlled. And second, that there was definitely a wolf who survived a feast in Yasumizu. Also, I may have grasped some hints to the reason Haru-chan entered Yasumizu 8 years ago and returned alive. Bad ending 22, killed by Kanzo's first and last shot.
The history of Yasumizu was cleared up here, mostly about the previous two feasts. Haru's secret was alluded to as well. This information is necessary to combat the evil that lurks in Yasumizu, but that's a bit of a grueling story. Anyway, if you haven't done it yet, why not try go to 5 Wit, How to Pass Time, for a spin. You can open the lock there with key 20, the first of the keys you got, and take a breather by having a nice chat there.
Alrighty. If the real story behind the feast made people into that, didn't that have happened to Kanzo-san? Wolves and the badger. I knew it was a thing, but didn't quite understand how it worked. That was probably something I could only find out if I became a badger. Or a wolf. That meant it was pointless to think about it now. The thing I had to do now was ask Hisako a question. Oh yeah. It just came back to me. I was the me that had been crushed by a million sheep. I'd somehow forgotten that. The looping was kind of irregular this time, so my memories weren't maintained properly. Anyway, since I remembered it now, I figured I had to ask her something. What is it, Fusaishi-kun? I'd said I was going to get some fresh air and caught up to Mamiya-san. In this timeline, she was a wolf, so she wasn't very stable right now. And with the whole snake act she'd pull tomorrow, she'd probably go completely out of control. I'd have liked to have talked to her in a timeline where Hashimoto-san was alive, but I imagine it'd be hard to find a chance to talk to her then. I remembered it at a decent time, though, so whatever, I'd make it work. I have more questions about the old stories here. About the badger? I don't think that'd ever leave the realm of imagination. There's no point in talking about it here, is it? Is there? Acting like she didn't know, huh? No, I'm interested in something that came up before that. You gave some examples of wolf, snake, monkey, and crow shrines, right? Even named some snake gods. What about spider? Ooh, you noticed. She giggled in a somewhat creepy manner. Apparently, it was easy to talk to her if it was about her specialty. I actually don't know of a single place worshipping a spider servant. I need to read up more. But it's not like spider gods are common, right? Yeah, I know a bunch of spider yokai, though. I know that centipedes are Bitamonten servants. You know about Shingen Takeda's centipede army, right? Yeah, it was a popular military symbol because centipedes can only go forward, right? Yeah, isn't that good enough? They're close enough to spiders, right? I wouldn't say so. Thought so. Spider gods are rare, even if you look at the rest of the world. They are. Yes, there's the African Anansi, the North American ectomy. Besides that, there's a lot of spider-based stuff in Native American myths, and I have a theory about that. Oh? She looked behind me, so I turned around and saw Yasunaga-kun. Sorry, I was wondering what you were talking about. Oh, we were just continuing the occult lesson. I asked about it. It was hard to continue it in the dining hall. I see, but you shouldn't have secret chats in this situation. That's true, but unraveling the legends is important, and I'm just interested in it too. I know what you mean. Is this what you call folkloristics? No. The actual specialist would get mad if you called it that. It's more like a mythology nut talk or folklore gossip. If you're interested, you can join us. It'll make us less suspicious. Good point. I guess I'll hang around for a bit. We weren't saying anything that was worth hiding anyway. Were you talking about spiders? Yes, I have an outrageous theory about it. The Uematsu family is actually descended from the Ojibwe Native Americans. What? What does that mean? Yeah, what does that mean? You abandoned me the moment you realized that the joke didn't click. Oh well. You know about dream catchers? Is that an attraction or something? Oh, I know. It's that net thing made of stringing wood. The mobile-like decoration. That's right. Those things were first crafted by the Ojibwe Native American tribe, and it's actually based on the spider's web. It's like it says in the name, it catches all the bad dreams and only lets through the good ones so the children can sleep well. Also, the story about the dream catcher speaks of a spider woman called Asirikashi. Sounds like Uematsu, right? I must be pronouncing that incredibly wrong. Sinu? What is that in reference to, ZD? It does. The spider was said to protect the people from the dreams of Yomi. Amazing. Then the Uematsu are actually Native Americans who came here centuries ago. Yasunaga, don't be fooled. Ah, okay. Huh? Well, there's the faintest sliver of a chance, that's true. But it's probably just a coincidence. There's similar legends all over the world, and it's hard to argue that they're actually the same thing. There's even theories that Japanese are actually Jews, and that Minamoto no Yoshitsunu is actually Genghis Khan. What? Genghis Khan? Don't just believe it. These theories have as much basis as the ones that say that those symbols have the same origin because they're similarly shaped. I see. There are many people who get into these things out of boredom, delusion, or over a grudge, and they're often the loudest ones. I will admit that people's delusions are a source of dreams, but you should enjoy them with discretion. Oh. I went on a tangent there. But anyway, no, I don't think she has Native American blood. But I believe that it's not unlikely that it could be related to some very old folktale. I see. By the way, you know Zhang? He was one of the fathers of psychology, and he proposed some fantastical concepts. I think he was in one of my ethics workbooks. Are you talking about the collective unconscious? It's related, but I'll leave the complex stuff aside for now. Jung believed that similarities in legends and myths are born because of mental images that most of humanity can relate to. Race and era don't matter here. It's a universal image that all of mankind understands, and it's why similar myths can be created in different places and cultures. That's a bold assumption. I actually think that what you said about history being the prime influence here is more likely. He has detractors, of course, but that's what he believed, and he gave the name archetype to those common images. And he defined several such archetypes himself. Trickster, anima, etc. Among those, the spider is considered to symbolize a great mother. Great mother? Yes, the mother that gave birth to all, loves and cherishes all, as well as the one that binds all, obsesses over all, then consumes it all, only to birth them again. It's an Earth Mother sort of entity. Humanity collectively sees that in the spider, or thinks of such things upon seeing it, apparently. And then you're Coco, where your mind just goes blank and you scream. If there really is such an archetype, it'd be no surprise that something embodying the idea of a spider weaving a net, protecting the sleep of the children, was born both in America and Japan, with no real connection between the two. I see. I'm guessing that's a psychology subject. Hey, well, my role here is just presenting some weird fantastical theories. Don't take it too seriously. But the fact that there are many ways to approach these theories is new to me. I know what you mean. I'm sure I'd have a lot of fun if I could analyze the local faith properly. Would saying it's fun make people mad, though? But really, if I could make money off of it, I'd investigate it myself. Where can you study that kind of thing anyway? Did you learn it in college or something? Huh? Didn't you want to be a lawyer? Yes, of course. My teacher always used to say that college is a place where you learn what you want to. If you change your mind, I'll introduce you to a cultural anthropologist from XX University. Thank you. Mamiya-san left him a business card and said he could contact her anytime. Aww. Knowing she's a wolf, that's sad. They could have been buddies. He continued to ask her about folkloristics, looking really passionate about it. I really appreciate how people could bond over academic subjects in the most unexpected of places. Well, I actually had another question myself.
Nichan, what are you doing here?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm heading back. Sorry about that. I'll talk to you again if you don't mind. Not at all.
You sure get around.
Oh, hold on, what do you mean? Perfect timing for Haru-chan. I feel like I might have ruined the future of a promising youth. Ruined is a big word, though. I won't deny that being an occult writer isn't an ideal occupation. Wow, so rude. I can't deny that. But if he wants to be a scholar, I don't think anyone would make fun of him. You're in sciences, right? I guess you could say that. I just want to grab him by the throat and shake him and just tell us already. Let me just tell you that you shouldn't underestimate how little money liberal arts majors make. I'm sorry, I completely forgot. Now I'm annoyed. Anyway, should we go back too? Before that. You said you know spider yokai, right? Can you name some? Right? Well, there's Jorogumo. Depending on the legend, the image it gives off is a creature that commands fire, embraces children. But mostly, it's an enchanting woman that does something to men. The Tsuchigumo, defeated by Minamoto no Yorimitsu, was just a huge spider, but it could transform into a beautiful woman. Sounds to me like the spider's archetype is evil woman. I know what you mean. They're black widows, too. We laughed a bit. Chatting with Mamiya-san was always entertaining. There's also some legends about minor spider yokai, I guess. For something more modern, there's the spider's thread. Kandata spared a simple spider, but the one who let the thread down was Buddha. I see. The Uematsu's clothing has Buddhist influences, too. I don't know if that's relevant, though. Besides that, all I have is pure fiction like Atlaknacha. If you go there, you'd have to rethink all the other guardians. That's true. The Hound of Tindalos, Velusia Serpent, Men, Monkey. What's good for a monkey? Wendigo? I wonder why there aren't many Japanese spider gods. Because they're creepy? Ending up as monsters must have been the best they could do. Unexpectedly shallow for the country that came up with the concept of Yaoyorozu, that there's a god in everything. If you think about this more seriously, then it might be because Japan is the country of the Amatsukami. Amatsukami? Yep, the lineage starting with Ameno Kanushi, then going to Izanagi and Izanami, then Amaterasu, then the heavenly grandson, Ninigi. The first emperor of Japan, Jinmu, came 3 generations after Ninigi, so the current imperial family would be the descendants of Amatsukami. Huh? There were gods before Izanagi and Izanami? Tons. They created the country and lots of other gods, but there were gods born alongside the creation of heaven and earth. Anyway, gods with roots in heaven. Yakamagahara are considered Amatsukami, while those who left Takamagahara ended up living on Earth like Susanoo are Kinutsukami. Then the Amatsukami said that they control Ashihara no Nakatsukuni, that's Japan by the way,
After much wrangling, they ended up striking an agreement. The Kinutsukami ended up living a secluded life in the Izumo Grand Shrine and handed control over to Ashihara no Nakatsukuni to Amatsukami. After that, Emperor Jinmu traveled east to make his city, then defeated powerful enemies like Naga Tsunehiko and the numerous Tsuchigumo. Ah, that's not the yokai, by the way. It's a derogatory name for the clans that used to live there. Anyway, he conquered them. You were probably right the first time, mummy. I shouldn't have laughed at that, but... And finally, built the foundation with the current Yamato. That's what the Kojiki says about the creation of this country. Huh? It was that complicated. I only knew Izanagi, Izanami, Imano Iwato, and the defeat of Orochi. Well, it's a pretty authoritarian country, so its myths represent that. That's kind of disrespectful, isn't it? Anyway, back to the matter at hand. Though Kinutsukami married the Amatsukami in some cases, they're rarely considered to be the main ones. In the world of Japanese myth, the male lineage takes precedence, so it means that this country belongs to the descendants of Amatsukami. Consider the aforementioned snake god, Umono Nushi. He's a Kitsukami, and you can see that Amatsukami are more prevalent. The story you mentioned, the one about Susanoo, is pretty vague in that regard, but you can still interpret it as an Amatsukami story. That's true. So yeah, there are spider gods, but they've been categorized as Kinutsukami. And if you ignore Ukunushi and Uomono-nushi, they're all very minor. I see. Well, that was interesting. I see. Sorry I couldn't give you a proper answer. Well, I'm just killing some time here. Sorry for bothering you. Don't worry. I enjoyed it too. Maybe you should tell it to Chiemi-chan and Mochi too. They're interested in myths. I guess so. But man, I don't want to go back there. The dining hall's too tense. Anyway, I left a line that pretty much implied that I knew who the wolves were. Maybe she'd start panicking and kill me. That'd make things easier for me. Nothing? I turned around and saw no one. She ignored it. Or maybe she just broke things off for her own safety. I might have underestimated her. He clearly wasn't the type of person to panic and kill someone in daytime and suffer the corruption. I had no choice then. I considered trying something or another in this timeline again, but in the end I decided to jump into the Saranaga. The things I'd learned today made it impossible for me to sit still. It was such a major key to this mystery. I had to bring it to the me in the next loop as soon as possible. After gathering my resolve, I took a step forward. Gravity vanished. Right before I died, I thought about my one regret. It was a chat from before. Talking about history and the occult alongside Mamiya-san and Yasunaga-kun was a lot of fun. Yasunaga-kun seemed to be enjoying himself a lot too. What a waste.
I got to talk about this settlement's interesting history, had a lot of fun doing it, and shared this pleasure with Yasunaga-kun. Yet it'd all be gone now. I felt like I'd just gained another reason to end this nightmare. I'd love to chat with them about the occult as normal people, not just as potential wolves or humans. Maybe we'd drink over it, too. Alright. Yasunaga-kun was underage. I crashed into the ground. Myth and archetype. Hisako taught me some useful knowledge about mythology and psychology. The stories about the spider divinities were particularly impressionable. The Amatsukami and the Kinutsukami, the Great Mother archetype, dream catchers. Now then, what could be the spider of Fujiyoshi? Bad ending 12. Lazy suicide after gathering the remaining story bits. You'll see for yourself exactly what part of all of Hisako Mamiya's jibber-jabber was the key to the truth when you read the rest of the story. Key 9 only functions as one of the final keys, so just hold on to it carefully for now. If you haven't gone there yet, first go to 2, Dense Mist, her motive, and get key 3 from Chiemi's dumb quiz. After that, you'll want to go to the branch unlocked by key 3, in other words, at 4, Infiltration, all set. You got a ton of info from there. First, I had to check if the place was even usable. The equipment and materials were all gone. The only thing of note here was the sink on the wall. The flooring was cold and a bit sandy. But with a bit of cleaning and a futon, it could be a decent living space. There was no running water, but if we placed a water bucket here, whoever was living here could easily wash themselves. At that moment, my head was flooded with information. It felt like my mind was crushed by a million sheep. Crap, I forget. Did my memories carry over in a weird way because the method from back then was weird? Well, then again, this wouldn't be the first time my memories didn't carry over properly. Maybe I should have counted myself lucky for remembering at all. I had tons of things to think about. About the beast in the village, the giant monster, the dream enveloping Fujiyoshi, as well as the looping the sheep had told me about. But this wasn't the time to worry about that. I went back to the Nosato mansion. Doorbell. Excuse me. Doorbell. Excuse me. Doorbell, 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 doorbell. In the jungle of the decadent void, the Buddha's corpse shouts out,
Rah! Who's singing the Buddha's Ash Rock while hammering my doorbell? Me. You? Have you gone mad? What's wrong with you? You were a normal youth until a moment ago. I'm perfectly sane. And you know the song? What about it? I simply remembered hearing it at a store. Huh. So you don't know the Hinja slaver? Well... I do. I knew it. Personally, I like Moraimon. What a minor Hinja. Black Dogeza is the way to start... go, starting with part 3. Oh, I really love the part where 5 Black Dogezas gathered and became the Black Dogezarian. You're an otaku, right? So are you? Wait, this isn't the time to bond over minor Flash movies. You don't have any other business with me, do you? I'm busy here. I have something to tell you. I believe you're someone who would understand. What is it? I will say something absurd now. You might even doubt my sanity. Well, I'm not saying that you can't differentiate reality and fiction. In fact, you can probably do it better than the average person. However, I do believe you have a decent ability to suspend your disbelief. Ooh, wait, what are you getting at? Do you know that movie where someone is repeating the day before the school culture festival over and over again? Is that one? It's a classic. Sure, I know it. What about it? Something similar is happening to me right now. Wait. Mist will rise from Saranaga in just a few hours. The feast of the Yomi Purge will begin, and many will die. Huh? What are you... Wait, why do you know that term? You will die too. Answer my question. Stop saying ridiculous things. I understand if you don't believe me. I've repeated these few days dozens of times now, and with every death, I loop back to square one. That's why I know a lot about Yasumisu, including things that no newcomer should know about. You're a doctor of medicine, graduated from XX University. Shikamochi Kamoshida is your nephew, and you have feelings for Rikako Uematsu. Huh? However, I'm sure that's not enough. I could have easily looked that up myself. And what's more, I didn't come here to save you. It's likely that you'll die this time too. But I would like to ask you some things. I can prevent the feast from happening in another timeline. Are you serious? Yes. Why come to me? Through the many feasts I've been in, I've come to understand what kind of person you are. Your nature, basically. And I believe that you're a person who can understand things if they're explained properly. Come in. There. He let me into the well-furnished reception room. The inside was as fancy as the outside. The village heads had to be a really wealthy bunch. Is it that curious? He returned from the kitchen, carrying a set of black tea. Sorry for staring. I think it's outdated too. Don't worry, have some tea. Oh, no need to fuss over me. I'm of poor upbringing, so do tell me if I'm not drinking right or something. I won't mind if you drink how you want. Thank you. Now, was this room prepared by the head of the family from 3 generations ago? Your great-grandfather? Where did you hear about him? Even you are a... how do I put it? A looper. I do not believe an Osato would tell you about the stain on the family name. Did another village head tell you about it? I don't know what he'd want, but he must have been some sort of swindler. It was you. What? I heard it from you. When your and Chikamochi Kamoshida-kun's relationship became worse, you told him this. You are as much of a madman as your great-great-grandfather. He closed his eyes and groaned, then laid back on his sofa. I invited you inside out of mere curiosity. But if you know that much, I might even believe you. I need you to, though I don't have anything I would call evidence. Instead, I will tell you of the loops I experienced. It will probably make it seem even more absurd, but I still want you to believe it. Enough with the build-up, get to it. I drank the fragrant tea and spoke. About the time Yasunaga Oribe won as a wolf. About the time Chiemi tried to kill everyone, and the time she failed. And even how at the end of that, Kyonosuke had, for some reason, killed Rikako-san, and then I killed him. Finally, I told him about the time I became a wolf and sacrificed my companions to win. Though I kept quiet about the sheep and the giant monster for now. It was hard to think that he was the main culprit behind the loop, but there was no guarantee that it wouldn't leak out somehow. Thus, I only told him that I was hanged because Mamiya-san found the flashlight. I'd also mentioned that Kyonosuke died too, and that I'd heard of the thing about his great-grandfather then. After about an hour of talk, he stood up to get more tea. And speaking of which, I am going to do that myself, so be right back.
Alrighty, I am back. After about an hour of talk, he stood up to get some more tea. He poured it in, and I gladly drank it. Unlike before, it was herb tea. Tired from talking, I let the pleasant scent of the tea wash away my fatigue and eyed him. Thank you, PCU. He was hanging his head, looking down at the tea leaves floating in his tea. Thank you, Ziri. He then took the cup in hand, drank some of it, and looked at me. You're right. That does sound absurd. However, it does seem like something that can happen in this absurd place. You believe me? I'll simply say that I'm more interested in this than ever, but the more I listen, the more I wonder. What do you want of me? If you have seen so many feast, surely you know by now. I am not a man who can do much in a dire situation. I'll start with something seemingly unrelated, but I don't quite understand that opinion of yours. At first, I thought you were just an arrogant and haughty person. Then I thought you were just a village head antagonistic to Yasumitsu. I would only say that you are just a bit uncomfortable with your hometown, and that you actually have a good discretion and talents. You do absurd things sometimes, but I believe you look at your decisions from a third-person perspective. That makes me feel like you're hiding your true ability. I honestly am nearly completely sure that the head families are involved in the feast. That's why I believe you might know something but are hiding it. That's why I want you to tell me what you know about Yasumitsu's and Fujiyoshi's secrets. Though I mentioned before, there may be more delicate matters here, like the Uematsu family. Even so, I want to hear everything. I am bad at talking and leading, simply because I am that kind of person. As you know, the current head of the family is my older brother. He's a great man of character with immense intelligence and charisma. I have been in his shadow ever since I was young. Whenever I said or did whatever I wanted, he would spin it in a way that was good for me. Because everything went so well with him, I began to believe I was blessed with great talent. I realized how mediocre I really was by the time I turned 20. I realized I was bad at reasoning, and generally a nuisance. That's why I left this village, but I couldn't find a place for myself outside either. The only place where I felt comfortable was the Sci-Fi Research Society. It was basically a hangout for gaudy people like myself. Even so, most of them were smart, and even the president, despite his many repeated years, had excellent leadership skills. I became the vice president, and whenever I said anything too apprehensive, speculative, or scathing, he would turn it around for me. I knew full well that I can't lead. I imagine that the me you know merely tried to be useful to Sir Makishima Yasunaga Oribe, Moon, or Muro. I probably couldn't abandon my pride even in that situation. A village head like me has to take charge and whatnot. That's so unreasonable. I truly am a problematic person. Please don't be so hard on yourself. I can see pretty clearly that you're a level-headed person. That's only because you said things so absurd that I feel like opening up to you.
Remember how I was before I let you inside? A haughty, aggressive, boring man. Nah, you two are fanboying. Well, even if you're a liar and everything you said was made up, I'd consider this worth it for the moment of introspection. At least as long as you don't tell me to pay for your tuition or something. My heart ached a bit. I won't say that, of course. But I was exposing the current him to danger. Now, back on topic. About what you wanted to hear. Unfortunately, the family isn't that interested in me. You mean that? Yes, though I know the basics of what a village head should know. I know absolutely nothing about what they do behind the scenes. Though, you know about the older hostilities between Yasumisu and Kami Fujiyoshi? No! Please, tell me! Unfortunately, barely anyone knew about the village and the feast. Or rather, they all converged upon a certain old story. It was a minor bit of knowledge Kyunosuke knew as a village head, and he said that Yasumisu had once rebelled against Kami Fujiyoshi. They didn't know what prompted it, but apparently it had something to do with the water used for growing crops. Anyway, the people of Yasumisu invaded Kami Fujiyoshi at night, and stole, beat, and killed people. They were all covered in Saranaga's mud to keep from being identified. Kami Fujiyoshi's inhabitants greatly feared their appearance. Thus, after the rebellion, they decided to make things even worse for Yasumisu, and the inhabitants effectively strangled themselves. Apparently. I believe the thing about Saranaga's mud is tied to Fujiyoshi's unique perspective on life and death, particularly Yomi. So did the mud and the rebellion make Kami Fujiyoshi believe that the people of Yasumisu are Yomibito? That's not out of the question, but not certain either. Yasumisu and Kami Fujiyoshi had already been segregated, and it wasn't unlikely that there could be a rebellion. It was likely that the idea to cover themselves in mud was linked to the legend that Saranaga was Yomi, and intended to frighten people. I see. So how should we look at this event? For one, it was a reason for the Shinai Festival, the mountain festival that is still held today. They have a tradition to hold a parade of wolves, and it symbolizes the subduement and bringing down of the people of Yasumisu. Have you seen the cloth masks they wear while farming? Yes, it's so the people of Yasumisu don't look into the eyes of Yomibito. It's the other way around. It's so the people of Kami Fujiyoshi wouldn't have to look into the eyes of the people of Yasumisu, who may or may not be Yomibito. Okay. These old, unreasonable superstitions are still alive because they crossed the line once. That's what the village heads believe. Saying it out loud, I realize how truly awful it is. Why is such a festival and tradition still alive to this day? That festival might actually be important for Yasumisu. Do you know why? I don't. The wolf parade passes all the Okiba in Yasumisu, splashes water on the residents, and meets the village representative in the hall. Kaya-san, huh? The wolves would offer some things to the representative, and after thanking them for the festival's success, give them a lot of money and other goods. So they isolate Yasumisu economically and only pamper the place during these festivals. Exactly. You might say that this is just another way Kami Fujiyoshi controls Yasumisu. The money and goods are split among the inhabitants, and I hear it really helps them get by. This was only done out of fear that Yasumisu would rebel again. Just so you know, the Nosato don't approve of this. Only the Miguruma are fixated on it, and they're the top of Fujiyoshi. Though the Higuchi are in on it too, they believe that trampling all over Yasumisu is the logical thing to do. What an incomprehensible bunch. So as far as you know, the Nosato don't approve of this tyranny. Yes, I can't deny that. As far as I know. I'm sorry. I need to make something clear. It confuses me. You said that the rebellion wasn't the result of superstition, but that means that it's not certain if the mountain festival was caused by the rebellion either. Also, the festival and the feast are closely linked. You can even see it in the methods and roles. Well, you mentioned that the divine sake was drunk in the feast as well. Are you sure it's not a coincidence? If they donate paper, writing tools, and rope, it would mean that at least the Miguruma know about what happens in the feast. Hell, at this point, I'm willing to say it with absolute certainty. The Feast of the Yomi Purge is a severe crime committed by the head families to intimidate and control Yasumisu. I have an argument. You said that the feast involves monsters, doors that unlock themselves, and supernatural punishments. It's a paranormal event. If you are certain that the head families are responsible, I would like a scientific explanation for all the strange events. That's easy. What? Before I get to that, though, I would like to ask something. Can you show me the documents and writings collected in this mansion? I ended up being disappointed once. The house had a storage building, and there were archives there. There had been a lot of documents left by Kyonosuke Shi's great-grandfather, but they'd been sorted after he died. Thus, there was barely anything left, and the record storage was more just general storage. Even so, I insisted on taking a look, and now I was here. It really was just a place stuffed with various things.
I guess there was no lie that the whole mansion really is just a place to stash things. Yes, but we do have people living here sometimes. Like who? The previous two heads of the family lived here after they retired. So your father, too? Yes. He quickly grew senile and died of poisoning. Is that true? When did that happen? 8 years ago. That's when the previous feast happened. What? Oh, yes. It happened after the mist. There was a feast back then. Yes, the official report that people died in the landslide at your construction site must have been a cover for that. What? Wait, are you saying that my father knew something and died because of it? It's possible. And then there's the fact that this mansion was used as the retirement home of the previous Nosato heads. I think we might find something here. If the Nosato really are against the control structure in Fujiyoshi, that's even more likely. Let's look. If there's still something here, it must be hidden. But the mansion is too large, and we don't even know what we will be looking for. Yeah, I was just like, huh? I'm sure it must be something big. It has to be large enough for the previous heads to hide, write, and research. A secret room. I have a blueprint of the place. He found, opened it, and went around the mansion. There was nothing strange here. There were no empty spaces, and I didn't see any discrepancies with the actual building. Same went for the storage building. Isn't this a waste of time? No, if the blueprint isn't fake in any way. There must be something in place it doesn't cover. What do you mean? Let's check the basement of the storage building. I see. If there's a secret room in the basement, it wouldn't affect the blueprints because it'd be outside their boundaries. Yes, the blueprint doesn't have to show false information. It just has to avoid showing it. But that will make the search even more difficult. Well, he was right that sifting through the mess there would take forever. But it would make it a lot easier if we focused on the floor and the walls. I'd left my bag in the prefab, so I had no flashlight. I asked Nosato-san for something, and he prepared an aged oil lamp. You have all sorts of things laying around, huh? There's probably a flashlight somewhere, but this suits the atmosphere, right? I knew exactly what he meant. It took us less than half an hour to find it. Of course, it wasn't something that looked like what we were searching for at first glance. But it did seem a bit unnatural. There was a palm-sized crow carved on a wooden surface below the border wall. It was a symbol of the Nosato family. Is it a clue? Or some sort of mechanism? It's not just a carving, its parts are separate and movable. Buttons, So it's like a game. So he wasn't the only Nosato with strange hobbies, huh? I imagine it expects you to press him in order, but... Do you know any hints? The will of the crow. Offering those up to Fujiyoshi shall be as the will of the crow. That had to be it. So Nosato can open it easily, huh? Yes. We never repeat that teaching to anyone who isn't family. If it was made by my great-grandfather, then it must be a trap too. Seriously? But it's no problem for you, is it? What was it again? Law? Heather? Oh no, I'm not sure. Do you remember it? Hey! I do not. This is one of those things that I might have written down at some point, but then as things just since it seemed like it was so linear, I just tossed it aside. Let me see, I've got one thing here that has some notes. I imagine it probably doesn't matter. I feel like this won't lead to... Well, maybe it does, who knows. That would be really funny if it does. Okay, no, this is just notes of what happened in which loop. Oh well. Let's just go and see. No. Pretty sure it's something like devour the claw, eye, and beak. Really? Let's try it. Boom. He quickly pressed the buttons as I told him. A moment later... Wait, was that... a part of the wall turned 90 degrees? I opened up a space through which an adult, though probably not Hashimoto-san, could pass. You like this kind of thing, I assume. Oh, how embarrassing. I can't help but feel excited myself. It must be in my blood. Don't worry, I feel you. We bantered nonchalantly despite the dire situation. Once we made it inside, we had to pass through some hanging dried herbs. What's this? St. John's wort. Aren't you knowledgeable? It's just some herbs to repel bugs. Don't mind it. And it seems you were right. It's a study. It's tight in here, but the length is good. Let's see what we can find. I hope we have records made by the previous heads. I found a diary. Already? Let me look. We started looking around. Like we expected, the thick diary had writings left by all the previous heads of the Rosato family. It began with his great-grandfather, and the others added more after their retirements. All of them had strange handwriting, and according to what Kyonosuke could make out, it was a highly detailed document, and had references to other texts here. You could really tell it belonged to a family of scholars. The index on the diary referenced the documents all over the room, and the diary itself. Oh boy! was a description of what went on behind the scenes at Fujiyoshi. Kinoskishi's great-grandfather was a genius who gathered immense wealth, but also a madman who threw it all away. His writings were especially difficult to read, analyze, and understand. However, the feeling behind it couldn't be more obvious. It was anguish. Anguish at the fact that he'd found a rational solution and began to doubt the superstitions. The preamble went like this. Why do we submit to Great Lord Shinai? Outsiders would see our beliefs as pure madness. Even so, we take the passion we should direct to our parents and children, and instead dedicate it to our faith. That alone would not mean much, but when you see the shadow of Great Lord Shinai over our daily lives, we become fearful and absolutely loyal to him, like well-trained dogs. This slavery of the mind will still shackle us when the era of enlightenment reaches our home. This is why I have decided to take up the will of the crow I so neglected and begin my research. I hope it bears fruit, and mankind, not God, benefits from it, breaking free of the centuries of ignorance. This was written by Kyonosuke-shi's great-grandfather shortly after his role as head was passed down, when he was still in his healthy 40s. Upon reading this, Kyonosuke-shi looked conflicted. The great-grandfather he thought to be a madman was actually both reasonable and intelligent. I also had something to think about it. He'd challenged God. That absurd endeavor might have been the reason why he'd gone mad. The diary had 3 sections. In the first one, the great-grandfather tried to pinpoint the origin of Fujiyoshi. He wanted to find the invisible chains binding him by looking at where they started and where they were going. However, that was difficult. Trying to find documents in Fujiyoshi would have attracted the attention of the other families, particularly the Miguruma, who would then obstruct his work. Our legends say that we were protected by Shinai-sama. By looking for proof claiming otherwise, we would be betraying his compassion, and that was the height of disrespect. It was also a time when not everyone went to schools, and the literacy levels were really low. Thus, most of the records were held by the head families. However, there was no record of one of them trying to check another family's records, and that would obviously be met with opposition. Thus, he looked at the historical documents from outside Fujiyoshi. With the settlements being such a strange place, he figured that there would be many records about it made by outsiders. He was completely right. There were lots of old writings in nearby villages and towns. Since it was wartime and the economy was dire, the paper was about to be wasted on fixing sliding. He used his own funds to acquire these precious documents. They were now organized and placed somewhere in the room. But anyway, he was able to locate Fujiyoshi's roots. It happened 600 years ago, during the Muromachi period, a bit before the Sengoku. According to the documents, the place now known as Kami Fujiyoshi began as a hunter settlement. This place was a hunting ground for centuries. Game meat had only spread among the common people during the Meiji period, but the country folk had been eating it for long before that. At first, it was just a settlement of cabins for the hunters from nearby villages to rest or shelter, and places to skin and prepare meat. But once the people realized how rich the area was in game, they began colonizing the place. As a result, a part of Kami Fujiyoshi was born, and the people began living here as either farmers or hunters. The settlement had no name yet. However, these extremely old documents referred to it as Okami Village, or something similar. Not Okami as in Okami-sama, though, but Okami as in wolves, the canine beast. Apparently this place really had wolves before. Not mountain dogs or badgers, but actual wolves. That was no secret, though. The Shinai Shrine, run by the Miguruma, had actual wolf bones in it. However, according to the documents, during the settlement's development, the place was often attacked by wolves that caused major damage. They'd probably tried many things to deal with them, but the documents wrote down one very simple method. The people of the wolf village prepared a human sacrifice and consigned them to the flame. Alright. Human sacrifice. It was a practice that had existed in Japan for a long time. During construction or whatnot, people would be killed and buried as offerings to prevent misfortune. I'd heard of human sacrifices made to prevent bridges being taken away by floods, or people buried during castle fortification. It was a pretty big deal. Still, it wasn't weird to do it to prevent a beast-related problem. It did seem like a plausible story, so I wasn't surprised. Neither of us were specialists, but from what I knew, people tried to benefit from sacrifices by later on worshipping them as gods. I even heard that the pillar kanji used to count gods was based on the term for human sacrifice. Anyway, following the sacrifice, the beast attacks subsided, and the settlement continued to grow. At this point, the upper settlement, once known as Okami Village, now Kami Fujiyoshi, was surrounded by cabins and other settlements. Through irrigation, these settlements gathered water from the wolf village. One of these settlements was a dangerous place that was often covered in mist, that led people to their deaths. And for some reason, the locals found it really important. Yonosuke, his great-grandfather, and myself figured that it had to be Yasumisu. And if they took water from Kami Fujiyoshi, it wasn't hard to imagine that the hierarchical relationship between the settlements had already existed then. In agricultural societies, the settlements that controlled the supply of water were extremely influential. After all, if they stopped the flow, the settlements below would dry out. It was even related to the Yasumisu rebellion that Kyonosuke told me about. I couldn't ignore this point. Though there was no mention of Yasumisu or the local superstitions yet. All the documents said was that the wolf village was steadily progressing as a settlement. However, there was mention of a fearsome beast yokai or a god that ate people. Excuse me? So it was only mentioned in the oldest documents, then never heard from again. A god. A powerless god. That's not enough. The legends don't say anything about... Wait. The Badger? Do you hate that name?
Not at all. It is not wrong in the least. It is a fitting name for someone wearing the marks of Great Lord Shinai and acting as a leader of these mutts.
So, why not try joining me? My land may be small, but I will make sure you're not bored. It had to be God. He said she was defeated by Great Lord Shinai, but never mentioned when it happened. To the left of the kanji for God, there is a radical for Sho, and it's even more obvious in its old form. This means that the result is Okami, Great God. I was close to the truth. But for now, back to the history. Fujiyoshi had started out as your typical hunting/farming settlement. Things changed after about a century, when life in the settlement had stabilized. By this point, the records left by the outsiders started noting that there was a strange village in the mountains. The sources had started to become many and varied, too. I was curious about how the great-grandfather got documents from Kyoto and Tohoku. But anyway, these reports were records written by the travelers who'd stopped here. Many of them were interested in the local customs. One was their hate for the mountain fires. It was so bad that outsiders weren't allowed to make any flames, and they themselves had a special watering hole where they did it. One was their worship of a humanoid wolf statue. They asked it for good fortune in the hunt, and a peaceful life in the mountains. One was the special misty place, where travelers were summoned and welcomed by sensual women. Some rumors mentioned seemed hardly believable, but some of them were still alive, and I was surprised to know how old they were. What bothered me was the fact that there were many records of the invitations to the Misty Place, but nothing about getting killed there. In fact, most of them mentioned eating good meat and veggies, and drinking good sake while having fun with beautiful girls. It was safe to assume that the Feast of the Yomi Purge hadn't existed back then. It was closer to the traditional treatment of guests, as described by Rikako-san. By the way, you seem pretty hung up on guests. Is there some sort of local culture related to that? Yes. I hear that Fujiyoshi was once full of visitors who came to the Shinai Shrine, pray for good hunting. Hunters from the outside were considered honored guests and treated kindly around here. However, there was one thing she seemed to be wrong about.
The strange village in the records was a completely different place than the one built around the Shinai shrine she spoke of. In fact, there wasn't a single mention of Shinai at this point. The general area here was marked as Kachihara. Would things change if we continued further? Anyways, we kept reading. Such records continued for 2 or 3 decades, but there was a period that wasn't recorded at all. Apparently, the travelers who made their way to the area started being chased out, and that was it. The settlement suddenly became isolated. Without any documents from the village itself, it was hard to know exactly what happened during this time. But according to the Nosato documents, this time period was how far they could trace their lineage back. After that, settlement showed up in records another century later. It was the middle of the Edo period, peaceful times, and the amount of records appeared to have exploded, along with the name Shinai. There was a hidden mountain where the people worship a wolf-faced god and prosper because of it. It is said that the hunters who do not pay their respects to him get lost or injured in the mountains. It is a spiritual place that a mountain ascetic could visit at least once. Their prayers seem to heal all. There are oracles who can predict the future with great accuracy. The non-believers who step on the mountain are in for a terrible fate. The name of the god they worship is Shinai, and the village is called Fushiyoshi. So that's it! I looked forward and shouted with excitement. True, I did hear that this village was once called Fushiyoshi, but what's so important about that? It's the same trick with the name Shinai-san. When you take apart the kanji for Shinai into and, you can rearrange them into Okami, great god, which is also phonetically identical to wolf Okami. Oh, you're right. Hey, wait. Then you mean this is the same? Look at the name Fushiyoshi. The first kanji contains the radical for dog. Dog covers the animal radical that's used on the left of kanji. Keeping that in mind, you line that up with the yoshi of Fushiyoshi to get Fushiyoshi. If you broke apart the first kanji, you'd get person, dog, and good. Then by combining the latter 2 kanji into one, and putting the whole thing together again, you got Ito Okami, or werewolf. 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 Ito Okami. Does that refer to the Okami-sama? Or to Great Lord Shinai? The 2 of them are essentially the same. One takes the form of the peaceful god Great Lord Shinai, while the other takes the form of the resentful Okami-sama. They both take the shape of 3 werewolves, but do different things. I really can't blame people for seeing them as the same. Let's not forget that we have documents saying that there was a culture here that worshipped werewolves at least a century ago. Yeah, as someone who does not speak a speck of Japanese, I'm sure there's a lot that it is just going way over my head, but it sounds impressive all the same. They probably had some beast attacks, started holding human sacrifices, and built up primitive faith around werewolves. And as time passed, that evolved into Shinai-sama. Okami-sama is a divinity born during one of those stages, and to the people of that era, they were the same thing. The villagers of Fujiyoshi, no, of Fushiyoshi, were fully aware of the religion's peculiarities, and even hid that in their own village's name. Why did they hide it in the first place? I'm sure we'll find more hints up ahead. You're right. Let's move on. The great-grandfather seemed to have noticed these hidden words too. The reports that followed generally described Fushiyoshi as it was. Though their strange practices were now considered rituals, and it seemed to prosper as a cult. It was a mountain village far from the rest of civilization, yet it prospered through the money left behind by guests, who made the trip regardless. There were now two types of guests here. The ones who visited the place to hunt, and the ones that came for religious reasons. The writings from later dates included lots of those left by monks who'd come here to study the culture. All of them were surprised by the strange faith and legends of Fushiyoshi, and praised the strength of their belief. Some wrote about the faith in detail. Many of them clearly named the four head families and the legend about the 5 guardians. The hunters, however, didn't leave many writings. Or rather, it wasn't even their writings. Besides a couple reports by local lords of someone hunting down large beasts on Mount Shinai, there were also those that simply mentioned men who went hunting in Fushiyoshi and never returned. One of them clearly stated, "Do not hunt in Fushiyoshi in the summer. The people of Fushiyoshi speak of the curse of Yasumisu." I see. Fushiyoshi has changed a lot over the century. Yes. It's fair to assume that all the local names and stories were created during this time. Yasumisu seems to be leaving a different impression, too. The hunters who visit this place don't come back. That must mean that the Feast of the Yomi Purge had begun. The history continued. And unfortunately, I will have to go ahead and end things right here. But I think that we only have 2 more keys left, don't we? So we might be on the home stretch. And I'm very excited to see how everything just ends up tying together and how this wraps up. So tomorrow, I'm not 100% sure if I will be able to stream. You'll probably see the waiting room go up maybe just an hour before the usual streaming time if I'm able to. But if not, we'll be back on Wednesday. Thank you all so very much for coming on by. I hope that you have a wonderful time zone wherever you are. And as always, please do take care of yourselves and each other. Toodaloo-hoo!